Hi, my name is Basti. I'm the engineering manager for analytics instrumentation. And today I want to give an intro to internal analytics and its fundamental concepts called events and metrics. So in the case of internal analytics, I want to start with the concept of events. An event is a record of an action that happens within the Gitlab code base. To give some examples of events, those could be things like the user clicks on the search button, the backend merge request controller performs a create action, or a git push was received. I think that gives you a pretty good overview that events can happen all over the code base. That can be in the front end, it can be on the back end, either in something like a controller during a request response cycle, but it can also happen in some kind of background worker. And at its core, an event is just the record of this specific action happening at a specific point in time, not more than that. But in most cases, we want to attach additional context to the event to make it a bit more usable for later analysis. So this additional context can be things like the user who performed an event, or the project or namespace a specific action was taken in, or also the ID of any other property that was part of the event. So for example, in the backend merge request controller example, it could be the ID of the merge request that we record as part of the event that's happened. So events are kind of like the base layer of internal analytics. On top of that, we have something called metrics. And metrics are a value computed for analytics purposes, like the count of events. So normally you're using internal analytics for something like understanding the usage of a specific feature, because you want to understand whether a specific feature or improvements that you made to a feature are well received, if there's actually increased usage or decreased usage. And looking at an individual event record doesn't really tell you anything, right? So what you normally want to do is you look at the amount of events that happened and compute this. And a metric is this kind of computation. So you get back like how often did a specific event happen. As such, a metric normally has a simple type, such as a Boolean or number. And in our case, a metric can be based on fundamentally a count of events, a count of database rows, or on top of settings or other simple values. So in the case of events and database rows, you can think of a metric as just a count. So you take a bunch of events and compute how often did this event happen. Or you take a bunch of database rows and just count how many merge requests are there on an instance. That's the simplest idea of a metric. It can also be something like a setting. So in case of a setting, you can think of it like, for example, whether Prometheus is enabled on an instance or not. That's something that you can also record as part of a metric. In the case of event and database-based metrics, metrics can use uniqueness criteria to filter them down and to increase or get additional information. So you can, instead of looking at just the overall count of times a search was performed, you could look at things like the number of unique users who performed the search. You can even also look at other things that you've sent with the event. So if you store an event that always includes the project ID, then you can look at the number of unique projects this event was created in. So an example would be the number of unique projects a merge request was created in. And most cases, metrics are also time-based. So again, when you look at what we normally use analysis for to understand the usage of a feature, the metrics that you're normally interested in are something like how often did a specific event happen within the last 7 days, for example. In our case, what we offer is either you look at the last 7 days, you look at the last 28 days, or you look at an all-time count of something happening. In our own experience, most of the time, the last 7 days or last 28 days. So looking at specific timeframes is more interesting to kind of understand how is the usage of a specific feature or how the amount of events for some specific action has increased or decreased over time.